downshift. Wraps up for you.
Welcome to the Capital Program Committee meeting this October 24th, 2024. Thank you, Pete Gazer.
When this meeting's over,
And
I want to tell you a story about that.
Want to remind you that this is audio and video recorded. Can I get well, actually, I need to do a roll call. Jill Veith,
Christy Kickham.
John Kitchener here.
Pete Kazer.
Don, are you there?
Yes, I'm
Still
here.
have- Great, thank you. And could anybody else on announce yourselves? It looks like Sue.
Sue Carmel, Assistant Finance Director.
Great. Noah, I see you.
Noah Carver, Airport Manager.
And Maria.
Maria Bashiva, Business Finance Manager for the airport.
So good to see you
Nice to see you again.
again. And is anyone else? Is that it? I don't see any extras on there. No, is Art gonna join us?
I don't know. I forwarded him the invite, but I don't know if he's in his office or out in the field or available.
Okay, that's fine. I just wasn't sure if he was coming or not. If we needed to wait a minute or something if you want to.
No, I think we can get going. Thank you.
Okay, can I get approval of the agenda?
So, second,
Everyone just say aye.
Hi.
aye.
Aye.
Do we have any public comments?
I think for minutes purposes, I think we have
gotta
to roll call vote. if we
All right,
have
'cause John's
somebody-
on Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jill's and I, Christy.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye.
John, are you and I?
Aye.
Or no? Thank you. And I don't see any public comment. And now we can move on to the airport employee housing. So Noah, thanks for coming back. I actually wasn't here the first time you came. And I know you've given us a lot more material since then. We appreciate it. And I wanna, do you wanna talk first? Or do you want us just to ask questions?
No, I'm ready for questions. I'll defer to your committee.
Okay. Are you all ready to,
Hey. Yeah.
he did give more information?
Yep.
And I know everybody was concerned about just drilling down on what the housing was, and I think we felt like we got a amount, but we didn't have, and we got square footage, but we didn't have a lot more than that. John, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, well, first of all, Noah, thanks for Wednesday, I guess, or Tuesday. That was very helpful.
Yes.
The time we spent together, appreciate that. Thank you. I guess, Madam Chair, though, I still have a question mark around $6 million for 2 dwelling units in a duplex compared to the cost of units that the Affordable Housing Trust and others have put up over, recent times. And I think for us as a due diligence, we ought to take a look at this versus some comparable units that have been built outside of the airport things. It would help me to kind of validate whether this is 6 million without land. Sewer is pretty well already there, right? And so it still seems like a big amount. I won't get what I want by doing though, well, this looks high, that looks high. I would rather take this, which is very helpful now, and just, maybe with Christy or Tucker or both, just have a look at some comparables. That's what I would like to do to satisfy myself. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Pete?
I mean, the numbers are tough to digest. I do understand it's public procurement. I understand the Nantucket factors. I understand, all that. And this isn't the first project that's ever come with a price tag that was tough to wrap your head around. I don't disagree with John's recommendation for due diligence. It's, I mean, these are just, they're complicated projects. The timelines are long, the bidding process typically doesn't happen once and then you move forward, it happens, things change, it happens again, costs go up, it happens, it seems more of a problem that's pervasive throughout the public procurement process, especially on Nantucket. And so part of me hates holding up projects that we look back years later and then say, well, it was gonna be this much, now it's this much. At the same time, you know, we are a board that is essentially looking out for the best interests of the taxpayers in terms of due diligence and making sure that, you know, whoever is presenting to us is doing theirs. So that's kind of a long way to say,
Tough call.
it's not something that I wanna hold up. I was very much in favor last year when we were at phase one, saying, look, there's a lot of other ways that this could probably be done. We could look at long-term master plan, look at relocating this and that, but at the end of the day, I mean, housing is a major issue on this island and we need to support building it, not necessarily at any cost, but at, you know, what seems to be the cost of doing business to build housing on the island. And when it comes to the trust and other public, you know, uses of money for affordable housing, it also gets difficult because I don't know to what extent, you know, the town has really built any housing yet. I mean, the trust has put money to other organizations to build housing that then have done it outside of the public procurement process. But I don't think Tucker or Christie are gonna say, well, we built this unit here and it cost us this much, or we built, you know, that
Yeah.
apartment building there and it cost us this much. It seems like if anything, they've had more problems than they have had solutions in that regard. You know, and a lot of it is also because of the public procurement process.
Yeah. You kind of.
Well, no, and I mean, that's, I
Well,
guess,
so two things, Madam Chair. First of all, I'm not looking to hold it up long-term either. You know, I mean, I think getting in a room with perhaps Christie and Tucker and maybe there may be other more appropriate people. You know, that's a week or so, not a couple of months or so, you know, that's now that we have this, it's a much easier thing to do. I disagree a little bit with Pete in that yes, the process may be different, but we have subject matter experts on this island about how to build affordable housing, whether it's within the procurement process or outside of it. And I would just like to hear from them whether how they feel about this. That's all. I mean, normally, none of us around this table, I don't think, are subject matter experts in what it costs to put up this kind of building, but we have people on the island that are. And I think we should, you know, if we don't, this is going to go to the finance committee and somebody along the line is going to say, this sounds like it's too high and you're going to do this. So I would rather we do it, just due diligence and not take a long time to do it either.
Okay, Christie,
Thank
you.
Pardon?
Thank you, John.
Oh, yeah.
Christie?
I would just, I would ask Noah, what is there, is there something within this project that we just, are not, that's not out in the open that that you're funding, like, road infrastructure, nobody from road? Is this just like strictly for the building project? I know you guys have already done some infrastructure. But I mean, if you take apples for apples, what is making this number so high when you're comparing it with possibly an equal project anywhere else? You know, and what's your thought process as you look at this number? And you know, it's a difficult process to get this approved, because obviously, you know, this is we're all in favor of housing, but we're really, obviously, we're very hung up on this cost. And so I just wanted some sort of a narrative from you to give us just some idea what your thought process is as you look at these numbers, as you look at the project. Are there some odds and ends that we're just not thinking about that are included in this cost? And have you reviewed any other options? And yeah, just a few things for you to sort of kind of share with us.
Sure. So, I think I'd say I'd welcome the meeting as I believe John and
Jill.
John and Jill and Peter described. Because truth be told, I'm not aware of any apple to apple comparisons that are the same in scope. This is a single townhouse procured at a single time at this calendar time. That's reflective of very recent bid costs. What I presented to the Finance Commission is based off of the takeoff that we have from the dorm project, which is based off of actual biddable costs and proposals received from contractors. The dorm proposal, that was the cheapest of 3 or 4 bids. I think that's the reality of per square foot municipal construction. The reality is the state says we need to hire an OPM. The reality is we spend more on a local engineer, a local architect, because they know how to build things on Nantucket. So perhaps in this meeting, various stakeholders can show me where I'm wrong and where I'm not comparing apples to apples. And then if that data does indicate that I'm expensive and out of line with providing a quality living option for employees, I think the commission has the information they need not to vote for this project.
Yeah, I mean, as a follow-up, I mean, it would probably be okay for us to your point, John, maybe review with some of the powers that be that are experienced in this. To get some comparison.
I think so. I'm not looking to take this out on a bidding process and all that. Just have some people that are working with this every day on the island to just say, yeah, maybe it's a couple of $100,000 out here and there, or it's a couple of million out here and there, and that's all. I just don't feel comfortable. I'm going into this feeling I'm still not convinced that this is right, but I'm not a subject matter expert. And generally, the best way to do this is to ask somebody who knows more about this and let them satisfy us or tell us where we ought to be looking then on it. So, it shouldn't be a long process. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, if I may, I'll throw in a little plug for the airport. Aside from this being really something that we want to get our hands around, as far as housing, and maybe to part of Peter's point is, the airport has shown that and proved that they can't afford it. That is something that I know this is through the roof, but this is something that they've reviewed, put through. Listen, I want to see some more data as far as comparisons. I'd like to see that because I think that would be helpful for us to arrive at a final decision. I'm just adding in the component of the airport being comfortable about managing financially this project with revenue in a time that they feel they need. With that said, I really don't want to make any decision until I, have proper review of some comparisons, and I think that would be a good suggestion.
I mean, that I've asked you a lot about who can live in it, and that's been my biggest concern. I knew you all were concerned about and the funding too, but and I know you came back and said you thought police and fire, there would be some level of police officers and firemen that could potentially live in the housing that you have on that, I'm not saying these townhouses, but if you kind of expanded this program into more structures on that property. And so I wanted to know if what you said the other day was that it was maybe certain levels of police officers and firemen, that's what I heard. But I wondered if that was potentially open to, in general, EMTs. Or first responders, I should say.
So I'm going to make up staffing numbers. I don't know exactly what Chief Casper and Chief Cranston have at their disposal, but if NPD has 30 police officers from patrolman to detective, and fire department has 30 firefighters from entry level to captain and lieutenant. That's 60 firefighters and 60 combined firefighters and police officers who could be eligible for extra space that we have. You know, the answers that I don't have at this time are all fire and police department employees eligible? You know, dispatchers, I think the example I gave is, well, I consider dispatchers eligible. Would I consider a permit clerk eligible, or a fire department office manager? That's not so clear to me.
What about like first respond, I mean, I think they have first responders at other departments here, I think. DPW has some first responders, does the Board of Health have some first, I would think they might, I don't know, I was just wondering if that would qualify too.
I have a question.
Just thinking in the big picture, cause you have a large parcel there, so.
Joe,
That would be
just,
specific to police and fire, and because those are the organizations that are specifically outlined in our airport emergency plan.
Okay,
So if someone is a first responder but works for Department of Public Works, or if someone is a nurse and works for Our Island Home, they would not be eligible.
thank you.
Are you asking if there's room available that a first responder gets dibs after all of airport housing?
So, no, well,
Just one,
he
Sure.
said from the beginning, I guess, I feel like we've been talking about this for several years, that it's really, well, his dorm is going for the seasonal workforce,
Mhm.
right? So that makes sense. But, and I wanna go back to that in a second, but the townhouses, you know, if you saw the original plan, they had a number of structures. And they have a 5-acre parcel, and correct me if I'm wrong, Noah. But with that, they don't have a full build out plan. They just had a concept,
Mhm.
right? And they're starting and they're going with the dorm, and now they're going with this. Because, you know, they can pay for it. And then they could do other buildings, and I just thought this would be a really great opportunity. If we can get some other employee housing here, or affordable housing, however you wanna phrase it, but in this instance, because
I got you.
it's the
Yeah.
airport, the FAA is very restrictive about who can live in the housing on
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
aeronautical defined land.
You're
And
looking at the
so-
location as an opportunity.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and now we can't really say first responders, what Noah is saying, it's gotta be a policeman or a fireman. And how, you know, he's not 100% sure, like, does a dispatcher qualify as a policeman or fireman from the police department?
Which I think of a request confirm exactly who qualifies across the board.
Yes, because to me, that opens up a lot. That really opens my eyes to this site being a big site, and then wanting to come back maybe every year, every other year for more projects, and maybe that's something, you know, and with that, Noah, I guess I'd have to ask you, and I know we're getting a little off topic, but I'm trying to think big here. Is that something that you would have the town of Nantucket borrow money for and pay for? Like, let's say you thought you had met the needs of your existing employees, but you still have space for other buildings.
If I've met the needs for existing employees and I have no cause to build more buildings, I don't see the airport as building more buildings just to provide housing for our mutual aid partners. I'll take the townhouse that we're discussing. part of the $6 million request, 2 units, A and B. If I go to my, my airport employees and I only fill 1 unit and I have 1 unit available, I have 1 unit to rent out to police or fire. I don't see the airport building a village or development or cluster, whatever the terminology is, of 3 or 4 buildings for the express purpose of providing housing for police and fire department personnel. I think that's what probably runs afoul, and honestly, that position is to protect the airport and the town of Nantucket from, violating FAA revenue use guidelines.
John,
Well,
thank you for.
yeah, and one of the takeaways I took, Madam Chair, from the meeting we had was the first thing we really need to do is to really get clarity from the fire chief and chief of police as to what did they consider to be first responder positions that in some way might be related to a need if the airport had a need. So because it obviously isn't probably the dispatch clerk, for example, but let's try to figure out who are, of those numbers that Jill just gave, those whatever it was, 50 people, how many of those really fit that bill? So, and get that number first, so we know what we're trying to,
Yeah.
what are we trying to house?
Yeah, maybe Sue can
Yeah.
help us track.
Well,
down how
yeah,
many
but
people they have to.
because some of this, I feel like, what we've sort of stumbled on a bit is perhaps a little bit beyond the scope of the capital committee, because this is about, affordable housing for key people on this island, which it's great that if we're a catalyst, but it might be for others to take it forward. For example, Noah's point about, it's hard to see how we would draw a line that's suddenly the airport has to pay the cost of building these units. But if we've got the dirt though, and the NOAA and the airport commission would agree that, yeah, some of that dirt can be used.
FAA.
Well, yeah.
The town is not getting the
No,
dirt.
it's admitting that
Yeah,
they, that
but
they
see,
can.
let's not say that they can.
The police and firemen, yes, they qualify. That's
Yeah,
what we didn't
that's
have
what-
that last year.
step one
I
is to-
didn't understand it last year.
Step one is to find out who we think that does fit the first responder bill. Try to get some agreement with NOAA about that and the airport commission. Because then you can say, well, okay, of this 5-acre parcel, then how much of that should be built out? Perhaps not at the airport's expense, but how much should be built out to help with our affordable housing for key responders?
I need to be clear, this
This
is
is not for
airport
them.
obligated land. It's not available to the town for their housing projects. It's not available to the town for a DPW facility. All of these reasons come down to the same primacy of the FAA grants obligations. This is not something that the airport can give to the town for town purposes. It's something where we can share our excess if and when we have it, and we would be really happy and proud to do that with our partners. But those partners are extremely limited to our controlling regulations.
Yes, and I think we're all saying the same thing though. So it's not perhaps those 50 positions, but if it's 10 of them, let's get that. And then let's make our case to then the FAA or whoever it is. Let's make our case for that. But I don't think that's going to get done through the capital committee. But
Right.
It does need to get done though. And
Well, I think it's good that everybody's having the
Yeah.
discussion, so we
Yeah.
understand
yeah,
what the parameters are, because I don't think people understood for a long time that police and fire could be. they might be allowed under the FAA rules.
Mhm.
That was kind of
Yeah,
the key. That
Yeah,
was,
that's-
that
it
opened
is.
a window for me, that made me a lot more amenable to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
project,
I
to be
got you.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, no, that's helpful. Art, we see you there. Oh, Dawn, you wanna ask a question?
I just wanted to say what I'm having a little bit of difficulty with the numbers on this is that we have an estimate for housing at Sherburne Commons for a triplex that's around $4 million. So when I compare those two, I mean, unless that's going to end up coming in higher, I'm just not sure about how it's being, the two are being bidded and how I equate those.
Dawn, that is a terrific example, though, of it, of why we should do this. Because there is an example. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's something that,
That, yeah.
that
that's
could
something we
be
should
shared
talk
with
about.
someone, maybe that would help them.
That's the town's request for this.
Yeah. And how many bedrooms is that? 20?
So we're still complying,
So I'm saying like, that's another data
Yeah.
point that's, you know.
What's that, Dawn?
we're still complying with procurement for that. And I
Right.
believe it's to house like 16 employees.
And then that's new construction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because to do it's part of the Island Home Project.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what makes me
And you
struggle
know.
a bit with this.
And Peter just had another data point there with Tacoma Way. It's,
Tacoma.
yeah, so we do have some data.
I got a question.
Kristen?
No, is this sort of request, I guess the procurement of it coming through from Nantucket Memorial Airport, or is it coming through from the FAA?
Yeah.
How does it show up?
Yeah.
Could you maybe repeat that or say it in a different way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's a different, like, price difference if you're talking about a municipality as opposed to someone giving an estimate to the FAA. So I was just wondering if there's, it's coming through the Nantucket Memorial Airport, yeah?
Yeah, the fact that it's FAA obligated land, I can't think of a reason why that would add to sort of bid qualifications that are required by state procurement law. That more has to deal with our administrative end of it.
So we don't, so none of us really understand why these numbers are so different. Is it just who's bidding on it, Noah? Maybe?
All I can say, I haven't seen what Dawn has, but it sounds like Dawn has an estimate. What I have before you is a borrowing authorization. I don't expect to pay $6 million, but I don't want to have to come back to you in a year,
Right.
and I don't expect to borrow a penny more than I need to.
Okay. I mean, the dorm project was very expensive as well, didn't you think? Forgot how many square feet that was, but it only, the dorm house is 8 to 10 people. And it costs 8.2 million. Is that right?
So it did cost 8.2 million, but again, that included site build out. you know,
The sewer
running
was
the
a
sewer
huge-
to the area.
Yeah, it was a big fee. Which you don't have to, you know, pull now for townhouses or your other structures, it won't be as big of an issue. Pete,
I just, one kind of anecdotal, looking at the budget provided, it's surprising that the prefab building is quoted at 600,000 for a project that's about 6 million. Whereas, you know, we do a lot of prefab modular construction financing for businesses, for employee housing, obviously it's private sector. But typical rule of thumb with modulars is it's, you know, you take the price of the modular, you double it, you get the price of the project, and even take the price of the modular, triple it. You know, that's being very conservative and higher quality and everything. So it's just, that's probably the biggest thing that sticks out. And I also don't know, you know, this prefabrication building, if that's actually modular, that's 75% completed, roughed, drywalled, you know, primed on the inside, everything else, or if it's modular in the sense that they're bringing over wall panels and then everything else is roughed in on site, everything else is kind of built on site. So I guess the clarification I can't get from this, but that definitely is a surprisingly low price for the prefab relative to the total project cost.
See,
Anecdotal.
and Madam Chair, I think what Pete just said, that's the reason why we need to do this, because perhaps if this is quoted one way, Peter, that it's, you know, we're just taking the very basics and then we're doing everything else on the island. That's not what most, you know, most strategy
show
generally
us,
is do as
get
much
all-
off island as you possibly can and bring it over and bolt it together is more the strategy, right? Because mainly because it costs a lot more. Every nail you put in over here is a lot more expensive than if it's done on the island.
Yeah.
Off the island. So, you know, for me, Madam Chair, what Peter's saying is that's the kind of thing that, you know, we can guess at and good at sort of identifying it as an area to look, but we need some people that have a bit more knowledge to say, yeah, or no.
I mean,
So
the
sooner
site,
we
the
get
site
to
work
it,
is a
better.
huge figure for something that I think they're already getting the site ready for the dorm as it is, which is close by.
Yeah, and I think this all kind of goes back to how it was bid out and what the pool of bidders, you know,
Yeah.
actually are, you know, I mean, I'm familiar with Pearl, but you know, I don't know anything that they've done on the island, but
Yeah.
you know, were they the only bidder? Are there reasons that there aren't more bidders for something like this? I mean, I don't know local businesses are necessarily
Well, I guess
qualified
maybe
or
we should have, so,
certified.
no, was it bid out? Or this was just numbers that you got from a contractor you use?
So Pearl was the lowest of 3 or 4 bidders
Wow.
on dorm project. The estimate that we provided is our engineer's estimate, you know, based off of the bid prices they received in the dorm procurement. I believe they based that off the low bid, which was Pearl's.
Hey, cause Don, your bid is probably from, Smart, SMRT or something? Thank you, my last turn. I think that's just.
Oh, good.
To just get home, but yes,
Sorry.
FMRT, and it is part of a huge project, so
Yeah, you expect the numbers to come down something that big.
but it seems like a big delta. At the same time, a lot of these housing projects that have been started have come in higher, so I really respect Noah's thinking of, I want to ask for enough
Yeah,
and hopefully spend less. I do appreciate that, but
Yeah.
just across the
Okay.
board, the housing is worrying me, that how much it's costing, but I also know how much we need it.
no, well, we don't, nobody disagrees with that, I don't
Yes.
think, if I can speak for
Yeah.
everybody there.
So I mean, the way forward then, Madam Chair, is to sit down with,
I think if you want to do that, you can. No, I think if you. It doesn't sound like you're gonna change your request, I'm not gathering that. You just want the authority to borrow what you need, so I think we heard that today. And. Art, I see you got on, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything, but.
No, thank you. I'm just here in support, and should you have any questions, and just so that you know that the commission is behind the manager, and this is a project that we're in the process of trying to hire a manager, and what's the biggest
Yeah.
challenge we have? I mean, where are they
Yeah.
gonna live? So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to rehash everything you sort of went on to and how many other town employees, we don't want to build more than we need. If you found a little bit of excess, first responder, but really just trying to make sure that the airport has some housing units. And we're trying to have a bit of a diversity between, that dorm building, a couple of townhouses, and then I think a future project for one other standalone is probably coming as well. And as far as I know from the commission, that's sort of the way I've been thinking of it as the airport housing production plan. And then hopefully we just kind of can pump the brakes there, and I hope.
Well, thank you for that. We met with Noah the other day and we appreciate his time. The other thing that came out though, and Art, maybe you or no want to speak to this, is that you have the Thompson House, and I thought you were gonna maybe rehab that, maybe some of that would be in these costs, but it sounds like maybe it's not, or maybe you don't know what you're doing with that, but I didn't know,
So I'd be happy to address that if you could. That's our very next sort of level of discussion, I think, at a commission level, is that we needed to get the Thompson House currently used for the seasonal employees. So we need to do this in phases. As soon as we can get that house where it's not an immediate need because we can house those employees in the dorm, we can start planning in advance and we don't have to wait till the house is actually vacant. But now we're almost to that point. So let's finish with the townhouses and then move on to the Thompson House. Based on my understanding, past information, that Thompson House is seasonal. It's not winterized. It has to get blown out. Chances of rehabbing that is probably throwing good money after bad. I don't know that definitively, but I'm pretty sure. So that'll be the next one.
gotcha, so that will be after you finish the townhouses that you wanna do, cause.
Townhouse design, I think, and permitting, and then again, this is, I can't speak for the entire commission. I'm telling you that that's the next item for us to discuss, I think, for our planning for housing, would be to do that, yes. So, and then hopefully be done for a period of time, for housing. That'll give us the seasonal, that'll give us a couple townhouses, 4 units for, whatever that might look like for middle to upper management, perhaps as needed. Being able to fill, to retain critical positions to the operation of the airport. And that could in fact be used for a manager perhaps, but I think that part of the strategy also is that the manager, a bit of separation distance from all of the employees that they're overseeing, as opposed to living in very close quarters to them, is probably a better long-term plan for the stability of the airport.
Right, and then address Thompson House property, because I mean, you own that too. I guess the one thing I just want to convey to you, Art, in the commission, and no, I'm sure already conveyed it to you from us the other day, is you know that we have this housing problem, and so this idea that you can put in police and fire officers as, allowed through the FAA procedures, I think that really came through to me as being something
Oh.
very. And I hope that that's
I'm
something
just getting
that
ready
you,
to get in now. I'm logged
I know
in.
that, David, you're not on mute. And I know that isn't who you're looking to. I know you're looking at your community, but we're trying to here at our committee, look at the whole community. And not just not isolate each business, and funding stream. So, that's just something I think that's important to us to convey. And I was appreciative that Noah really went and tracked down some of that information, and hopefully we can nail it down a little bit more too.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Appreciate it, because you guys are having to give us a lot of information, so thank you.
Jim,
Christie?
just quickly for Noah, do you know if Pearl has done any other project on Island?
I don't.
I'm just curious.
Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, all right. Hmm.
Anybody else? Okay, Noah, thank you. Maria, thank you. Art, thank you. Sorry, it takes
Thank you.
us a while to get through all these, so. It's a lot of detail.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, fellas.
All right, we're a little bit early for Dave Gray, but it looks like he's on and ready to go. Hey, David.
Already talking.
Hey, all.
How-
How is everybody?
Hey, David.
We heard what you said about Christie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope everyone's doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Just give me a sec. I'm gonna pull up my list.
I'll have you out of here before 3.
The airport. Oh, come on. Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna, do you know which one you wanna start with, David?
Yeah, I'm
Just
just
wanna-
gonna come down, I'm just gonna go down the line and, we should be pretty quick, I think.
Okay, great. You go for it. Thank you.
So, the first one you see is the CMOM, which has been ongoing now for multiple years, which just keep ongoing. After all of the CCTV work, investigation work, we're slowly doing all the repairs and replacements on the sanitary sewers. It's going slow, but we're making some really good headway, and we had some really good projects get taken care of last fall downtown, which has prevented a lot of excessive overtime and backups because of all the work that's being done. So that's just an ongoing thing. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone has any questions on it, but it's really been a good program.
Yeah, that's kind of what you ask for each year. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes, and it's been very, very successful.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing a lot of work up on Pleasant Street this fall. So,
Again?
well,
No.
between like Warren Street and Cherry Street, that's one of the last really bad areas we got to get to right now.
Chrissy?
So that one, if anyone has any questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David, fiscal year 2028, and maybe I'm just looking forward prematurely, but the funding stops, is that just not, placeholders aren't in there, or is that, has the process sort of found a little light at the end of the tunnel?
No, it's the placeholder's not in there yet.
Okay.
We've been,
Shoot.
each year we've made some really good progress, and we still have some little bit of funding left over from previous years, but it seems like when we've been getting into, example, Sconset, we figured we have it all planned and designed and stuff like that, and then we ran into an issue this year on King Street and Shell Street where the sewer line goes, there was never an easement, so we had to delay the project, stop the project, have meetings with the homeowners. We've since solved that issue, but now it's just a matter of having to go back out to Sconset and restart. So,
Yeah.
those have been the biggest issues that we've run into, is some of these a lack of easements to say. I mean, the way they did it in the old days is it flowed downhill. They went the best way they could, and then now we're stumbling on some stuff that with the unknowns that we're solving. So,
Let's do a follow-up, Joe.
You bet, Chrissy.
Yeah, in your, what's your thought on, what's the percent of, say, the CMOM that we've, captured? And as far as the program's concerned, I know it's been working great. I know it's been extremely valuable for your department, for all sorts of reasons. But are we like 10% in? Are we 80% done? Like, what do you got? What's your take? I'm just trying to put my head around it.
yeah, I would say we were between 40 and 60. And one of the big things that's taken a big chunk out of this is the force main project, because all along that route, we're replacing a lot of stuff that was identified in the CMOM, but
Yeah.
everything's going sewer, stormwater, water, and then the new force main. And that's really been a great project. And one of the things, again, a little bit of an unknown that we didn't expect is like the force main, for example, we've run into some areas where we had to try to shut the water off for neighborhoods and the valves didn't work. So we had to bring in special crews to put line stops in so we could put new valves in. And that's what we've also found with the CMOM, that some of these areas have valves that were 60, 70 years old and they wouldn't fully shut off. And we've had to do a lot of replacements, but it's Sconset's still the big piece of this to do. And Sconset is extremely tricky because of the sewers out there go through people's crawl spaces. Through the town
Yeah,
sewer
right.
goes, it's really tricky out there, and to either go after easements or just take and remove everything and then redesign and then change the flows down the street. So Sconset's tricky.
George got one. Oh,
Christy.
yeah, sorry, Dave. One more question. I noticed over time, say since on my sheet here, since fiscal year 22 up to now, we've allocated $2 million each time. Well, we know that everything goes up in cost. How is that working? Are you doing less because because of costs? Are you just asking for the same but doing less, or are we still getting that $2 million value that we got 5 years ago?
Oh, no. Luckily, with the size of some of these CMON projects, we're still getting very good pricing. I mean,
Okay.
the pricing hasn't gone up 2 or 3 times like some other stuff has
Mhm.
for buildings and everything like that. So we're doing okay. And a lot of the past years, we didn't fully expend that $2 million. So we're able to carry it over. One thing that we're running into with some of these projects is paving. It's costing about $1 million a mile right now for paving. So we
Oh,
have to keep that in our mind at all times.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's, these sewer projects that we do now, they're not just they're road projects is what they've turned into.
Yeah, good point.
And I'm very happy at our progress. I really am.
We are over the knee on that one,
I know.
Yeah.
over the knee.
Yeah, it's sad. Well, we know you're doing great work, David,
Yeah.
and we appreciate it. Your diligence.
Oh, this week I've had numerous people that wanted to hang me from trees because of Surfside Road, but hey,
I did have trouble getting around, but that's okay. I knew it was you. I knew we were. I see, if everyone met you, David, nobody'd be mad.
Don't
Yeah,
worry, don't worry, David, we'll be there to cut you down immediately.
okay, thank you.
David, you can blame us for approving it.
Right.
Okay, well, that's the easy way to do it.
That's a
But
good point.
You're going on the tree.
but thank you. It's for as big a projects as we have going on, I gotta say it's been very well. I know administration has heard some complaints and everything else like that, but all in all, I think it's been pretty good. So I can swing right into the next one if you guys would like. This has to do with Somerset needs area, the design. This is some supplemental. Some of the things that we're working on in conjunction with Somerset, which is actually kind of taken almost a project on its own all of a sudden, is major infrastructure needs to be done for stormwater in that area, which will be part of the sewer project. Funding will come from some possibly from some stormwater areas, but the other piece that was thrown into this, which kind of came late in the game, was the proposed bike path from Hummock Pond Road all the way into Raceway. Now that was another piece that kind of caught us off guard because it wasn't being really done by the town. It started off as being a private entity that wanted to start it. Now the town's kind of adopted. So we want to get all those pieces together at the same time. We already have some preliminary designs on both sewer and stormwater. Water in that area, luckily, has been in place for a while. There'll be some additions to that. One of the biggest issues that we're running into right now is trying to find a place to put a pump station, a gravity pump station. We've been working with the land bank as best as we can to see about using their side of the Bartlett Road bike path side on the land bank property to see if we can use a small piece of land there to possibly build a pump station there. And we've even tried to throw in some options like, hey, if we can build a pump station on your land, we can add some bathrooms to it so that we can take and provide a service as well for letting us use the property. So we're trying to think outside the box on some things. We've also been looking at.
How's that conversation going?
It's gone pretty well. I mean, they have some of the restrictions that the land bank has on property, and not only deed restrictions, but conservation restrictions. And we wanted to go across the golf course entirely with a new gravity line over to Mizzenmast so we could replace just one pump station. But they had so many restrictions in place, we couldn't even think of that. And we're also potentially looking at a property across on Butler Road to purchase that has housing, but could be a place for the pump station. So there's quite a few complications with this one. But it's the design and everything is going well. And now we're working very closely with Kevin Manuel, who just came on as the project manager. And we had a great meeting this morning on some new software that he's looking at as far as project management software, which is going to really help us to prioritize these things and be able to see them on an actual schedule or a waterfall type, so we know what's going on. And I think that'd be a big help to your board as well when we get there.
Definitely.
So this is again. No.
I guess my question about Somerset is it sounds like that's really not gonna happen for a while.
It's most likely still, I can't imagine the first toilet would be flushed between 5 or 7 years. Just because of the complications on easements that we're gonna have to take, and
Yeah.
it's not that it's an unusual area to do the construction in. It's just there's some complications with land and everything else that we're working. I tell you, we've been working with Tracy McDonald and her team, and you know, I can't say enough about them, because they've really helped ease some of that pain that we used to have to try to work through ourselves. So
Oh, good.
that has been really, really good.
So really this money, just so I understand it, is gonna go to potentially purchasing this property for that pump station? Or this
Possibly.
is
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it says land acquisition in the summary,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, and you think maybe some housing can go on there?
Well, there's 2 housing units there already, which which thinking out of the box, it's like, okay, that gives us a 2-for-1 spot for the pump station and some housing. And, you know, I listened to Noah and Arts, you know, with the housing is, I just was luckily just able to put 3 people on out here, and the housing department was able to find one of the guys some temporary housing, which was huge. And then we just had, for the first time in over a year, 3 applicants for our engineering position. So now that's going to be another housing piece to try to find. So,
Wow.
and we had a really good
So I'm
meeting with
going-
Christy.
I love the idea of this project that you guys can maybe tie into some of those things, not to put too fine a point on it, but that's kind of what I think our message is a little bit right now with the housing crisis, that I hope all the departments think like that, and all the enterprise funds. You know?
Well, we had a really good meeting with Christy Ferrantella this morning about all the town properties and stuff like that. And, you know, we were there to support her and say, hey, you know, there's town sewer here, there's town water there. It's just, there's a lot of connectivity lately now with all the different departments that I'm very excited about. It's really come a long way over the years.
That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear. I think that's comforting for our committee to hear that too. Because we're not in it every day like you are.
It's gotten, I mean, from working with Sue and everybody else, and, you know, if you ever have a question or whatever, they're a phone call away, which has been incredible. So
I agree. That's been my experience too. I'm glad to hear it's yours.
I think that, you know, the linkage between different boards and things that David is talking about, David, you're absolutely right. You know, your colleague and I guess friend, you know, Mark Willett, I was over there talking with him a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, he was talking about that piece of land he has up on Hopus Road. And that's an area where, yeah, he needs a couple of more for his own people. But that still leaves perhaps, I think, 3, 4, or 5 additional units that could go there for other, you know, for other town employees.
Yeah.
So, you know, you put that with perhaps what, you know, the airport thing, let's not reopen it, but, you know, there are some solutions that if we could just get everybody working together. There are some solutions if we open our arms a
Yeah.
bit.
I mean,
Well,
we're
and with
working
the
very closely
solutions
with
that didn't require procurement
yeah, that's,
on the town
that
property.
that is a hurdle, but we're working very closely with SMRT right now with a new design for the island home.
Yeah.
And if that goes forward, there's 2 duplex units that could very well be transported down here and put on our property to give us some more housing units. So the working in conjunction with everybody else, and I've worked so closely with Art and Noah over the years that it's refreshing. It really is.
Good.
So, um,
All right, next, anybody have any other questions about Somerset? Cause that's
No.
a big, long project that
Yeah.
looks like it's kind of gonna be done a little bit of time. You got a lot to work out legally, it sounds like.
yes.
Okay.
The
So
next one
what about-
is the Sconset clarifiers. This facility was built in 2002 to 2003, 2004 it went online. So we're now starting to see things break. Well, things are breaking here and it's a newer plant, but so we want to get into the design. That's what this is looking for now. And then the replacement, which the technology today compared to 10 years ago is so far advanced, and it's given us some increased benefits on our treatment processes, our ability to operate these more efficiently. Energy costs could potentially go down on a lot of stuff that we're doing nowadays, especially here at the big plant where we're getting to put in all new membranes and modifying all the valves, modifying all of our blowers. I mean, I'm hoping to see some pretty significant energy decreases on some of these projects. And our solar system that's here, which cost us, was $250,000 grant, we're saving about 32,000 kilowatt hours a month right now. It doesn't, it sounds like a huge number, but we use 10 times that amount, a month. But $32,000, I mean, 32,000 kilowatt hours a month is an incredible help for us. So,
Yeah.
you know, so this is what we're looking for in Sconset. I mean, it's and not a lot of big asks this year because there's just so much else going on, and I wouldn't have any hair left if I had any more big projects coming up right now. So, but with all the support I've had from the town, to administration, I see Don's on here, the select board. It's been very helpful. So.
Good.
And stormwater, we're still trying to get,
that.
well, we're still trying to get our feet under us we've become an enterprise fund. We're still working on that. We're trying to become a stormwater entity, working with our consultants, and we have no staff really except the stormwater manager. So we needed a year after last year's initial, the last couple of years initial thing. We have some funding that I'm getting ready to put out a bid right now for some island-wide drainage repairs. So now that we've been able to, have a couple of years of some CMOM money, now we're going to be able to put that into play, especially in the Brant Point area.
So you can use CMOP money for your stormwater enterprise fund?
This is on the stormwater front. We had some separate appropriations already, approvals. So what we're finding in the Brent Point area is, I mean, the sewers were old, but stormwater's older. And we keep finding something new every day. And we got to get a bid out here pretty soon to start to get some stuff done so that we don't have any collapses and any more sidewalks collapse or roadways collapse, because it's in really, really rough shape. So, so that's why I did not ask for anything really in stormwater this year. It's still, we're starting to gain some traction. So I think we needed a year to get some stuff rolling so that we know where we are.
Gotcha. Christie?
David, just two questions. I was hoping there would be some funding because I do want to see that keep pushing forward. But two questions. I was wondering, as far as Brand Point, you mentioned Brand Point. What effect did the I work that was done maybe 10 or so years ago have on? I know you say that things are still not great, but I'm hoping that was effective and still is and will remain to be so. And then my other question is something, I'm just asking about revenue as far as if your consultants have discussed revenue options for stormwater enterprise fund. And then and what could those be? And then, whenever I see a construction project pumping a massive amount of water into a drain, it's like lost revenue option. And so I'm just wondering, how close are we to that? And is that something so easy that, I mean, why couldn't we just say, there's gotta be someone to say, hey, from now on, here's a permit. You gotta send a permit to dump into the sewer and start capturing some revenue. Because we see it all the time, just these hoses, half the road is wet around it because it's been so much water. So every time I see that, I just think we're losing revenue.
All right, let me see if I can get all those together here.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
one of the things that we're working on right now currently with our consultants, the same consultants that helped us with our sewer regulations, we've started on stormwater regulations. And what we are doing this time, which I think is going to be a huge help, is not only will the town group members be working on this, like us, DPW, water. We're also bringing in the land bank, Nantucket Land and Water Council, Conservation Foundation, and there's been other people that have showed interest in trying to be involved with some of the stormwater stuff because they're seeing exactly what you're seeing. Is the amount of water that's being pumped down the roads or coming out of a construction site for 6 months or whatever. There are rules and regulations in place from DEP and EPA that you can't de-water, and that it hasn't been enforced now until we're starting to enforce it, until they get a permit from EPA or DEP, and that it's going to require testing on their part, because if something happens in one of these job sites, a fuel tank or something lets go, that's going to be going into our system. And who's DEP going to look at? They're going to look at the town. That's one of my biggest fears. And that's why we're really starting to push this NIPDES stuff is if you want to de-water right now into our system, you have to get a permit and pass muster with them before you pump it into our system, because we're going to get the blame for it. We are looking to create some revenue streams almost identical to what we do with sewer capacity fees. It's going to be a stormwater capacity fee, utilization fee, or whatever. We don't know what that rate is going to be yet, and it may be based off of something that we're looking at is these people that are dewatering, put a meter on there, dewatering, have them pay by the gallon.
Yeah. 100%.
Don't just give them okay, it's going to cost you $5,000. It's going to cost you 33 cents a gallon or something.
100%.
That's stuff that we're looking at. One of the biggest problems, like I said, sewer, we found a lot of places where there was never any easements. Stormwater is 100 times worse. It goes across everyone's property, and a lot of it hasn't been maintained over the years. And now that we're finally cameraing everything, which we have a crew on the island right now, cameraing these areas so that we not only know what we have, but where it is. So that's the stormwater regulations are going to have a lot of ability to say someone's going to put in a massive subdivision or a subdivision somewhere. There's going to be a fee for that to fund the stormwater enterprise fund. And what we're looking at is we're not looking to reinvent the wheel because it's been done in so many towns and areas in Massachusetts already. And the one lady that's working with us on these regulations is a former EPA regulator. So we have someone with some insight on a lot of different states. So we're not going to reinvent this wheel. We're going to look at other states, other towns and cities in Mass. They're already doing this. So that's going to be huge. And we just had our second meeting with that large group last week, a week before. And, you know, to bring in, and sometimes people are bringing in public or private partnerships, the resources that the land bank has, the Nantucket Land and Water Council and the Conservation Foundation are incredible. And they're going to be a huge benefit to us getting this stormwater regulations right the first time. And that's a big goal of ours. Sewer regulations, we've had some hiccups right out of the gate, but the stormwater regs were really focused on getting these right the first time. And I don't know if that was all three pieces of your question, Christy, or not.
Well, the other one was just the effectiveness of the I&I that we did in Brand Point
Okay,
back in, you know, maybe 10 years ago. I can't remember. And if that's still, you know, reaping benefits, and if it's,
Yep.
or if it was.
No, it wasn't not a one and done by any means. Just the work we did alone on the lining on Easton Street and other areas downtown, we removed over 250,000 gallons a day of II. And that made a big impact on our C Street pump station. And the more and more that we do, and even in every new sewer construction project, you have to have requirements in there to how much II you can remove. So the one areas that we did alone down on Eastern Street and, you know, Hulbert Avenue and areas, we removed over 250,000 gallons a day. And that was huge. And we did the same thing up on, you know, on the cliff. We lined all those lines and the numbers are really showing some pretty big impacts on that.
John Kitcher?
Hi, David, it's John Kitchener. Two questions. One, a very simple one. Can you educate me, please, and tell me what II means?
Yeah, inflow and infiltration. A lot of it's groundwater would be your infiltration. And inflow is if somebody has a sump pump in their basement or something like that, and they're pumping it into the system, into the sewer system, which is illegal anyways. But that's what the I&I stand for. And
Okay.
we just finished almost all of Lily Street, and we found 12 different residents that had direct tie-ins with sump pumps into the sewer system as we went through there. And we've have issued illicit discharge letters to all of those, and we've removed almost all of them to up to date. It's illegal, and Mass DEP extremely frowns on that. So we should see some pretty good numbers coming out of that as well.
Great. Okay, second question. I'm putting my planning board hat on, David. You know, everything you just talked about stormwater. I think it would be really good if we could find a way for you to kind of come talk to the planning board about all of that, the regulations, the potential funding opportunities, all of that. Because, you know, I'm fairly new to the planning board, but stormwater comes up pretty well on every application, but I'm not sure it captures what you're talking about. And
I'm glad you brought that up because I missed mentioning the planning board. Meg is on this group with us, and I understand that right now the planning, it's either the planning board or NP and EDC is currently getting ready to rewrite your subdivision regulations, and stormwater is a pretty big piece of that. So, you know, talking with Meg and Leslie, they said that forming this group when we did was probably the perfect time because we're going to be able to incorporate all of your needs and request what you just mentioned into what we need. and, start to get some of the developers involved in funding some of this. And I don't know, I think you were on the one meeting that we had over on Vandergilt, where our biggest concern now is maintenance. These people can put in these elaborate $500,000, $1 million systems, but if they don't maintain them, they're no good. They only last so many years. And we've been limited on Nantucket for private entities and private subdivisions to have a location where they could dump the debris from the vac trucks. In this upgrade that we're doing here at the facility, we are incorporating a brand new vac truck dump station. So all these private entities and these people, these divisions are going to have a place where they can legally dump the debris and get treated. There'll be a fee attached to that, but it's something that's very important for us.
Yeah, David, if you're okay, I mean, I think it's great that Megan is, involved in this. But I still think that, the 5 board members or 7 board members with the alternates would benefit from hearing you say what you just said to us, perhaps with a little more detail also. So if you're okay, I feel like I want to suggest that.
I'm fine with that. Perfectly fine.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
David, I had a question.
Christie.
Yes,
Okay, let me write Christie's name down
It's
here.
kind of a, yeah.
You get a time out.
No, because I'm on the Coastal Resiliency Committee, and you have any thoughts on the correlation between coastal resiliency and stormwater?
Oh, it's huge. We have been,
Yeah.
and I know I didn't mention all the groups, and I'm sorry, but Vince has been working with us. Leah Hill has been
Yep.
a huge,
Yeah, she's
tremendous
great.
asset to us. It correlates 1,000%. We all talk about sea level rise. That's one piece. The sea level rises, so is the groundwater, and that's what we're finding. If the sea level has come up an inch or whatever, and also the groundwater has come up. We're seeing that a lot of the areas down on Brant Point, Easy Street, we're working extremely closely with the whole group for the harbor waterfront, Washington Street with the land bank. We've been working with Jeff Carlson's team and the land bank, as well as the Great Harbor Yacht Club on trying to, there's a lot of infrastructure in the bushes down there that no one knows is there. A lot of it hasn't been cleaned in whatever so many years. So we're working with all those groups, and it has a huge connection, a massive connection. One of the things that we have found that by Mass Fisheries and the state, they don't want the stormwater going into the harbor anymore. They want it to either be diverted to somewhere where it's treated first, which the Lily Pond, that little pocket wetland that was just built on Easton Street, it looks nice and everything. That's got a huge piece of treating stormwater, because the stormwater is going into that and then coming out cleaner just because of the natural filter thing. And then we're doing the same thing in Lily Pond. When that Lily Pond project gets through, it's going to have open bioswales. So it's going to treat the stormwater coming from the cliff before it gets discharged into the harbor. So a lot of connecting pieces, and I did not mention them all, and I should have had a list, but coastal resiliency is a huge, and everything we do now, even our sewer projects, everything has to have a coastal resiliency piece.
That conversation will continue, as you know.
Oh,
But thank you.
I mean, it's huge. I mean, just with erosion that we're facing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're working so closely with all these other groups.
All right.
Sweet.
David, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Oh,
David.
thank you, everyone. I know
Great.
I tend to talk a lot, but
No, you do a lot, and
uh,
we're limited in what we understand about it, so we appreciate your time, and
Keep up the good work.
no.
we like to see you out there.
thank you, everybody, and thank you, Sue, for everything you've done to help.
Oh, so.
And I know I see Dawn in there too. I can't, you know,
Thank you.
all those folks
David.
have been huge. So thank you, Dawn, very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day and have a good weekend.
You too. All right, so I think that concludes our, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that concludes our requests for 2026.
Well,
So well done, everybody.
That's it.
they're big done, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
See you guys next year.
Yeah, not you, buddy. You gotta get out of that.
None of us are.
And I think that brings us to the report writing. Howard's not here, so maybe we can regroup with him on that next week. We don't have any more requests to go over from department heads. If there is some questions you have, or you want to know something before you get into your
Yeah.
worries, or want someone to
As we're
come
going
back,
through 'em.
now's a chance to ask, but next week, it was really more of a placeholder. I don't think we really had anything specific planned, so if y'all want to take the week off, I'm open to that. Or
Get Rory's done.
we could come in and sit down and do Rory's if you wanted. If people kind of had requests about those, or questions about those, or
I mean, if I thought like we'd all be here and we we're doing Rory's and maybe this little questioning going on back and forth about some items.
I can do
I'd be
that.
happy to meet. But if I'm like one of two, probably not.
I would do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of nice to talk about them. If you do them, you don't have to. There's no,
Yeah, I think,
Do we wanna try to do them here? Do we wanna try to do them before the meeting and then come in with our questions? Based on having done or worked through the Rorys for each other, just
I
for
would
each other.
definitely prefer this back.
I agree.
what date is that?
it's gonna be
31st.
October 31st.
Ooh.
Okay, so that's the last day that we're really meant to do them, right?
Well,
Oh.
if you guys wanna,
Oh, that's Halloween.
well,
It's also Halloween.
yeah,
Is that
that's
the
not
day
a
of the
good
parade?
day.
I won't, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
you're
gonna
not gonna be
tough
here.
one.
So what if we do it the following, what if we say, hey, the goal is to get most of them finished for the following week? Okay,
7th.
the 7th, and then on that day, for if you're like, hey, I couldn't do 10 of these because I need answers to X, Y, and Z.
Or wanna come in and just discuss it to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just say, did I do it right? So you don't hit the
Well,
save
so you
on
okay?
those.
You okay if we, so, yeah.
We're-
It's like we're doing homework together.
Yeah,
Isn't that cool? You haven't done that since like college, right?
But the what, I want to make sure I understand this thing. So, because what Peter is saying is, okay, we can do it a week later, but we should have done some work ourselves, because we're coming in
With the questions.
With
that
the
you talked to
questions.
That's
everybody
right,
about.
so you don't wanna do your complete save, you can
No.
fill things out and
Yeah.
hit it,
Yeah,
right, and then it won't
yeah,
be
but I mean,
totally saved and
You gotta-
completed.
you gotta take good notes and know what you're saving.
I have.
Well, you
but-
can put them in the notes
let's
in
say,
the
yeah.
system if you want. I mean, I know we can read those, but
I'm assuming I'll go through
The comment
80% of them and do them and save them, cause I'll be comfortable and I'll just
Same,
write out a
Yeah,
list
that's
of
what
the
I'm-
I might
last
have a
6 or
question.
7
Yeah.
that I say, hey, guys, like. You know,
Yeah.
this, anybody have idea about this one? You
so
know,
originally
when-
we were gonna finish at the end of this month. Are you saying that we have,
do you wanna extend it for a week?
what
so
are you
you
saying,
can
we have
come-
the 2 weeks and then that's it?
The 7th.
Well, no, I mean, actually, get done what you can, but when you come, if you want us to do some together, I'm saying you're gonna have some that you're probably haven't finished. Maybe
Yeah,
you
I-
two have your
like-
pros, you've been on the committee
Yeah,
forever, but
Like Peter says, I certainly will have probably
Handful.
10 or under
Yeah.
of ones that have a question on and wanna just kind of
Yeah.
poll the committee.
yeah,
Right,
Well, I'm
But
the new boy, so it's probably more than 10.
big, yeah,
But, you know, on the other hand, I can see already that there's a lot that I'm not gonna have an issue with, so.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it
I
very.
think the goal should be to get the ones you're not gonna have an issue with done.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
come in with just.
Note the other ones and then we'll just each individually go around and say, all right,
Yes.
I had these
Yeah.
4, you know.
Correct,
Some of you might also have this one, so
correct, yeah, I
Let's talk
agree.
about
Don,
that.
are you good with that?
Yes.
Just the ones you can, and the ones that you can't, just bring in and you can ask
And
questions. And
so
again,
no-
Pete's
and
been
that-
through this so many times and so is Christie.
Well,
They actually have a lot
And
of.
you're only gonna know that you can't do it by trying to do it. So
Absolutely.
essentially, you're gonna go through the whole list and
Yeah,
whatever
that's
ones you
right.
get stuck on.
That's why in
Make
years
a note.
past, I got confused because then we just
Yeah.
had to have them done and we never talked about them. And I was like, gosh,
Do my best and.
You know,
save it.
you always remember the stuff about the vehicle. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so no meeting next week, but we
No
really
meeting
have to
next
have
week.
everything
We get
done.
Halloween
But try to
off.
have the ones
but we gotta
you
do
know
some-
that you
yeah.
feel confident in the following week and the ones you don't. We'll answer what you can. And then we should be
Yeah.
about wrapped up. Give you a few days after that. And
Yeah,
is that good? Does that work for you, Sue?
Yeah, the only thing I have to check is November 7th wasn't a scheduled meeting, so I just gotta make sure.
That was the week we had off, but we're saying next week off and then meet the 7th if we can.
I just gotta check to make sure the room's available, that's all.
Got it.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely something you don't wanna do by Zoom. I think that would be,
Yeah.
this be,
no,
I think this is in person only. Can we do it that way?
We still have to have the Zoom link if you would like me to attend.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna ask our
Yeah.
members to be in person if you can be in person, cause it's.
Oh,
not
I'm-
gonna help
yeah,
us
I'll
be
be-
on Zoom.
yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like it'll be a lot of free form
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
It's good.
then the next time, so Sue will check that and send that around, I guess. And then the other thing I wanna keep bringing up to you all is that we have this year's huge asks. It's huge. It's $228 million and, so
That's for asks over.
that's for everything. But it is true that as a committee, we look at everything. And so we can talk about the forest and we can talk about the trees, but the forest says $228 million, you know?
Mm.
And I think we have to think about in our report, how do we want to talk about such a huge number? You know, and especially for the things I think that are gonna go to the ballot. A couple of those things we might not know yet, although Sue can probably find out. There might be a couple other borrowing authorizations in there that work.
Yeah, I mean, I've already had a conversation with Jill. Because coming to this new again. You know, the year before that, you know, apples with apples. You know, stuff that is, what was the authorization ask?
Mhm.
It was 21 million in 25. 44 million in 24, 60 in 23, 35 in 2022. So 2026 is 60 million or more than the total of the prior 4 years in total. It's 6 times the average of those 4 years. And we all know what it is. It's the DPW, it's the. But my view, and I realize I'm new, but my view is our role isn't to say, well, yes, but this is going to, you know, on the ballot. Our role is to evaluate what was put in front of us. And this is what was put in front of us. And so I think we would be remiss if we did not have some kind of overarching comment that is more than what the Rories tell us. It's saying, you know, some would say, and I'd be one of them, would say, this is not a sustainable ask, no matter how valid.
Mm.
$250 million ask of authorizations in 1 year. I would say, if I was writing on my own, is not a sustainable request. So these individual conversations that go on about the DBW outside of Capcom, you know, we know that there's a lot of discussions go on about the DPW. There's a lot of discussions that go on about our island home and a couple of others. And that's okay. But our role is to say, as an independent body, this is what we were asked to look at, and we are going to answer each one of them in turn. But a big issue is the total amount, no matter if it was all high priority and absolutely had to be done. It's not a sustainable number. I mean, so my I guess, plea is that when we do our final report, there is a piece about that. So that, because I do think it's part of our role.
Yeah.
As an independent body to say, this is what you asked us to look at. We've looked at it. We're gonna tell you about each of them individually, how we feel, but we're also gonna comment on the overall amount. That would be my ask.
Okay. Christie, you wanna comment on that?
I don't mind that, but I would like some, guidance or, I got from, finance, from, Brian, maybe he, I think whatever he would, as far as the sustainability issue, because we do look at each request on its merits individually, despite what the overall number is. Some of those are town generated, some are community generated as far as, what the people want. But I would like to sort of gauge maybe Brian at some point on maybe on that November 7th meeting or something, when he's available at some point, to just make a comment to us. If we're gonna do a comment, we really should consult with town finance and find out what's your take on this? What's the John brings up sustainability. He might say it's ludicrous, he might say it's totally within our, financing.
Capabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say that is what Ryan says.
Yeah.
I
Which
still
one?
don't
Which
think
one?
that it's totally
Yeah.
within our, we can borrow that. To borrow $230 million has a carrying cost. If you take the last bond that we authorized in May for, I think it was 90 million, was borrowed at 3.1%, is probably higher than that, by the time we get to this. But even at that, that's $7 million of interest per year. If Brian says that's okay, that's fine, except I don't think that is our job, isn't to change our report. I think it's for us to say, this is the amount. It's order of magnitude off of the charts, what we've had before. And it's for Brian then to address the finance committee about that, correct, meaning Capcom, but here's how we're gonna do it. I don't think it's for us to say, let's not talk about it because our finance director says it's okay.
I'm just saying, if we're offering a comment, we should have his consult to help us create that comment. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
To give us guidance. John, we can write whatever we think personally from what our experience is, but I just think that there's a component of, I would have comfort being able to craft a better comment with his consult or with his 2 cents.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. I
yeah,
mean,
well, Brian will wanna come, and Sue together, they'll wanna come and talk to us about what you're gonna put on the ballot, or what's gonna need to go on the ballot, and what's gonna, is something an override, is something a debt exclusion. I think he'll wanna talk about that anyway, so it's a good time.
Yeah.
For him to
But
weigh in on
again,
it.
that isn't our job. Our job
no,
is
that's
to
his.
evaluate the requests that we'll put in front of us.
Yeah.
How they get funded and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think is part of the role.
Yeah, no, I think because I'm on the finance
Yeah.
committee, so I think of things in terms of what's gonna be on the warrant and what's gonna be on the ballot, because there's sometimes a differential.
Yeah.
And Sue was reminding me today that auxiliary building did not pass at the ballot. So that's not being built.
for the,
Fire department,
For
or
fire
police
department.
Oh.
department.
Yeah. And So, you know, we all talked about that and we saw it voted on at town meeting and it was fine and then. You know, I mean, in all the requests, but it didn't pass at the ballot, so. You know, there are some decisions well over our head about things
Oh, yeah,
like
I mean,
that. How
I kind of
it's-
see this process, as far as I can see so far. It's like it's like a funnel that, you know, we're the first screen and it's this big.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the finance committee and maybe it's this big. And then it goes to the select board and it's this big.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, right? That's the natural order of things. I just think we have to be careful if we water down our comments because of what's gonna happen later on. That shouldn't be our job. I don't think, we're an independent body, and it's what we collectively think. And if everybody else thinks differently, that's fine. I'm just saying, that's what I would be asking for. And maybe Brian will agree with that, because he knows what comes next in the
Yeah.
process. So I'm okay, you know.
Well, one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
we've done in the past, unless we're gonna change this, which I wasn't planning to this year. Is that we were going to, once you have the Rorys and they're in, and then we see kind of where we land. Because sometimes if it's not in the hopper. Even if we all rated one of the bigger projects really low. And said, well, we don't wanna put that through in our report. You know, I'm pretty sure the select board is still gonna put it forward or put it in the warrant or on the ballot. Don, maybe you can weigh in on that?
I believe so, yeah.
So,
I mean, when you say it goes from this to this to this, really, it's like this all the way down. It's
Yes.
just how many get positive or just because it gets a negative recommendation from us doesn't skinny up what goes to the finance committee. It
right,
just gives them this
we
board's
just look at it as a separate warrant.
best kind of, you know,
Yeah.
we did the due diligence, so you guys don't have to, so take that into your decision. But they can still say, well, thanks for not wanting to do this, but we fully are in support
Or
of it. so
thanks
we're
for
gonna-"
just weighing in on it and what did
Yeah.
Capcom say about it, and sometimes the finance committee does do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
totally.
to your point, stuff that doesn't make it in the hopper, sometimes we'll vote it into the hopper because it's a small request and it didn't meet all the needs, but because of the dollar amount, we do feel like it's worthwhile and some stuff.
Yeah.
That does make it into the hopper, somebody can flag out and say, hey, even though this scored really well, I don't think it necessarily should be in here, and we take a vote and majority prevails.
Yeah.
So I mean, we do have flexibility to, you know, at the end of the day, not have such a rigid Rory-based system such that, you know, we can't make any changes after
Oh,
everybody.
no, I think the commentary can be very different and explain it. That's why I'm saying, I mean, this is so obvious, but the forest and the trees, and I think that's what you're talking about. You don't want the trees to get in our way where we're not explaining the forest. So
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying, and I think that that is valid, and we might wanna consider that when we write
I
this
actually
report.
think, Jill, I think it will be valuable, to do it that way. In that it will be perhaps the first sort of official document where these big things are put together and then be looked at through a lens together and not separately. Because right now, those, like I said, the DPW on home, those discussions are going on and, you know, realistically, it's those discussions that are going on that are gonna impact whether they go forward or not, more than what
It's 100%.
we think. But we can do the town a service by putting it all out there and saying, well, guys, when you start talking about this, don't forget this.
Well, I would imagine the finance department's already getting a pretty wide scale look at what do we have on the table for this year and how are we gonna do this all in 1 year? And to your point, Brian might say it's too much, or Brian might say we're fine. You know, and you said, you know, earlier, I mean, there's some discussions being had. I would say the majority of discussions being had about these big items are happening outside of this room.
Absolutely.
For a long time now
Yeah,
and with a
so
lot
what
of
we
different
can do is
departments.
evaluate it based on what we
Yeah.
have and the
And
knowledge that we have.
I
And I
guess-
think that that's within that's what we've been asked to do.
And one last comment, I mean, obviously, it's a staggering amount of money this year, but I wouldn't say that 1 year, and not that there's not gonna be large requests. Every year going forward, maybe there is, probably is, maybe there isn't, but we don't know yet. But this 1 year being 6 times the average of the last 5 years doesn't necessarily in and of itself make a trend. So to say that it's sustainable or not. assumes that it's gonna be this way every year going forward.
And I'm not suggesting that that's,
Right. But to say that it's
Yeah.
not sustainable would assume that you're worried that it would be happening. every
No,
year going
I-
forward.
what I mean is a borrowing cost on that. Look, everything is sustainable if you put the tax rate up, right? I mean, so. If you're the CEO of Nantucket Island Inc., though. You'd look at this. In a way that. Am I gonna, from a cash flow point of view? Am I gonna go bankrupt before, this all really washes out?
Cause
Yeah, and that's what Brian, I'm sure, Brian's already doing this, by the way, for sure, he's not waiting for he knows exactly what
Poor
all these
Brian.
numbers. In the big picture,
so
cause. But I think it'll be good to shine a light on it. I'm a big believer in transparency and shining a light, so that.
Yeah.
If people know it already, but perhaps they don't. When you put it all together, perhaps they haven't seen it and thought about it. quite
Well,
that way.
I think there does have to, like, last year they had that collision meeting done. Are you on anymore? Maybe not. And they talked about all these big projects that were coming up. So this isn't the first year this is gonna happen. It is gonna be other years for other big
Yeah, we
ticket
know that.
items, and they have to decide. What they wanna bring
Yeah.
at the same time, and I don't know if they wanna bring all these at the same time.
No,
But I think it hurts their chances of getting anything if you bring too many, but.
Yeah, I mean, you have projects, when you have this kind of. Requests, you have projects pitting against each other
Mhm.
because. In people's mind, they say, well, we just wanna spend 60 million. And they don't even think about the merits of each, and they just say like, all right, we're not gonna do this one, this one, and this one. That's what you don't want. You don't want the town meeting to come and people start picking away because. They were not at the meetings, they don't know what the department heads are,
no,
so it gets a little messy that way, but,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting, maybe. Maybe in 2 weeks, we could each have 5 items that we think maybe. Don't really, are ones that we would maybe not fund. We should think about, kind of as we're going through our Rorys, think about which ones are sort of. And you know what, the Rory valuations will dictate that somewhat. But, just by, going through it as a request on its own, just. Maybe
Well-
something to think about, just as we look at them, say, I. If I had to really start picking away at if we're, if Brian
Well,
comes
that's
back and
what
says, you need to
that's
cut.
a good
But
idea.
that's why I do look at those prioritizations. I look at that,
department,
I do, because they often do say medium and low, and I think, oh, that's important to me, but they're saying. Maybe can wait another year, so I look at those, but I don't know if you guys do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do. I have respect for the department heads
Yes,
that give a medium rating. Because it really wouldn't work for us. You need that rating system. It wouldn't work for us if everyone just said hi. Then you might as well just throw that whole rating system out.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
just, everyone's just shooting for the, I need.
then everybody can be low too.
Yeah, I need a stapler. This is a high value request, or, I just, so I think we gotta be careful about. Questioning the
Yeah,
value, look at
that's why I like
look at the merits of what they're asking for. And hear it in their voice. And then. Put the low, medium and high aside a little bit and use that judgment as opposed, because we do have to value and appreciate when they say low, medium and high.
No, I do too,
Yeah.
but
You know,
then I look
you
at
know.
it because I can look at that with all their asks for their department.
Yeah,
yeah.
And say, well, some were high and some were medium, and some were low, and I'll think. I heard what he said about that, and maybe that should have been bumped up, and we've encouraged that with people in the past when they brought in something that they were a little iffy on, and I
Yeah.
was like, you wanna think about.
true.
Can I please follow up on something?
Sure.
Because I think what you just said is really good, let's force ourselves into bottom 5, but maybe also the top 5. You know, to like, if I had to, these, these, you know, what are the 5 that you would die on the hill for, though? You know, and so, if we're gonna put our mindset, and I think it's a really good idea, Christie, to do that, but I'd like to say, look at it both ends, you know. What, I won't repeat myself.
Yeah, no, fair.
No,
It's an easy, we're gonna be running through all these. I've done maybe 4. So I've got a busy few weeks, but, certainly, good deal.
I thought this year the request seemed lower, but then when you add them up,
I mean,
it's because the big ticket. items
Volume
were-
on them, yeah, but the numbers are
Yes.
bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually.
I know
three-
even
three
like
from the
sewer, he
department,
only, I
they're like
know, I was like, wow, this
like
is the
10.
lowest.
You done anything else?
I know.
I know it. I know
Sure.
it.
All right, guys.
What can I ask, please?
Yeah.
One little piece of advice from me. Because, and it's about the, you know, the high medium thing. So. And I get it, I agree. But me as a person. In my head, if it's water related. And sewer related. Those projects are, unless somebody can convince me different, are high. No matter, if David thinks, yes, it's medium, yeah, but David. But those of us that live on this island, both of those, you know. That, if you need it, you need it, you know, and so I don't know how to.
Well, can I
Yeah.
just interject on that? For example, he's had things in the past, like last year, and then they ended up pulling them because they realized they didn't have somebody that could do it. So it kind of came through our process. It was ranked high, and then they're like, actually, we just can't do it. I mean, and I think that's a huge issue with the lack of employees here. And that's something that I'm factoring in, even though that's not really in our Rory, but it's really factoring in for me. Like, do we have enough people to run this that really can do it? And we asked a lot of those questions this fall, which I thought was really good. And, but so it can be like that, but funny enough, sometimes like Sue, you can even weigh in that we'll rank them and it'll be in ours, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes away like in a month after we've already ranked them. So, but like, I'd say 2 or 3 things a year that happens too.
There's probably a sewer or a water request that has come through medium that probably was medium. But I would say, I mean, I think that your personal opinion of it will translate into your votes.
Exactly, and I think
Yeah.
that's, again, that's the beauty of this board, it's each of our respective. Kind of interpretation of the request, how we perceive it, doesn't have to be the same as yours.
Yeah.
If I, from my own, you know, background experience on the island, whether you're born here or move here, or you're older, or whatever it is, you know, ours are all different, and it's good that they're different, because we represent a different cross sections of the tax-paying voting public,
Yeah.
you know, so our individual differences go into this combined score.
Yeah.
As
that's-
as long as, you know, you
Yeah.
stay consistent in
Yeah.
your own kind of framework that you work within.
Yeah.
Granted, it's different from mine and it's different from Christie, as long as we all stay consistent in those, the integrity to the process is maintained.
Yep.
And if we all just looked at it with the same exact framework and all our orders were the exact same, then this process would kind of be a waste of time, and there'd be
Yeah.
nothing to really talk about, you know, so it is.
Good point.
And that's not to say that I agree or disagree with, you know, water and sewer are 2 very important things, you know, but somebody might say, well, I think. Fire and public safety are because of the people that I live with and I talk to and stuff that's happened to people I know in the past, and it's.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's
It's-
good.
yeah.
That's helpful.
I also think you probably
And
assume a
some-
lot more people read our report than actually do.
Don't say
Oh,
But
it's a great report, don't get me wrong.
It is a great report.
speaking of like trees and forests, I mean, a good example is the year that we talked about the grass field. To do a new grass field, which is taking out all those trees at Novadear. And it was expensive. I mean, plus he was gonna add lighting and some other things. It was $4 million. I think we all ended up ranking it. It went in the hopper. It went into our report as a positive, even though he ranked it low. And I was like, you're telling me you don't have enough fields, and the
Right.
school's not gonna build any more fields. I think this, you need to write this. on here.
Services for
Let's
children,
Yeah.
Talk about it, and so.
recreation and mental health.
So anyway, we did our part of it here at Catcom, and then FinCom talked about it, and they were like, yeah, I mean, let's make sure that we support that too. And then it got to town meeting and people stood up and talked against it. It didn't pass. But it went on the ballot and it did pass.
Mm.
So that allowed it to come back for special town meeting again, and then it passed. So some funny things happen in the
Yeah,
process
yeah.
on
Good
the
one.
way
Good
that.
memory.
I'd say that one went like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't explain why it went like that, but that was kind of encouraging to me, because I think the right outcome came, but it took a little longer and.
It could,
Yeah,
it could, I mean, it could sort of get people to maybe speak on a few items at town meeting, as far as someone saying, oh, let's take this item out, you know, just thinking about that.
Sure, but that's fine too.
And we're tasked with what we're tasked with, but at the end of the day, we're 7 voters in the voting
Correct.
public of, 10,000 registered voters, and I
Yeah.
mean, we give our time and our diligence and our opinions and everything else, whether they're,
True.
whatever they are, but I mean, at the end of the day, we go in and our vote only counts as much as anybody else's.
Yeah,
yeah, I do think
It
that
does.
point you made is a
Yeah.
good one, and I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way. Which is, whether it's by design or accident, we do have some varied opinions here, so.
Of course,
So what comes out of it is, should be better than any one of us, like being one, so,
or our opinions all being identical.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, Jesus, that would be horrible, huh?
I know,
Like
but on some of
10-minute
the
long
big
meetings.
items, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Just as an aside, then I'll definitely shut up so we can leave, but, I've become a convert to the select board strategic plan. On the NEPDC, we've gone through all the, restructuring, and new enabling legislation. And it caused me to think, well, okay, once this is all done, then what are we actually going to do as an NEPDC? And someone suggested to me, said, you should take a look at the select board strategic plan. And I did. And you know what? It is a very focused document, 6 clear sort of focus
Pillars.
areas, specific goals under each one of the 6.
Yeah.
Quarterly reports on where we are specifically on all of that. And I think as a process because then I thought, well, if you're the NEPDC or anyone else for that matter, if these are the select board priorities for our town for the next 5 years, well, the NEPDC shouldn't have a different 5. I mean, if this is the guiding, if this is the roadmap, it's the roadmap.
Mhm.
And it ought to be, how can
You
each
both.
of these other boards, how can we come in and support it? Not getting in the way of or duplicating, but what can we do that's additional? But it ought to be primarily against those 6 focus areas of.
Yeah.
So, and it sort of comes, not quite so directly with this, but, it's a screen now that I have in my head when I'm looking at things. If
Well,
it's,
that's why it's one of the questions on the Rory's too.
Right,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's why it's, I mean, it gets 10% of the aggregate Rory score. But to your point, and I think you were making a point opposite of this, it's the select boards or an independent commission's own strategic plan. Which sounds like what you're saying is that those should kind of be one and the same.
yeah, I think,
And we've had that conversation here before when we've been going through it, and we said, well, how would you, rate this one for the strategic plan? And someone would say, well, it's not the select board strategic plan, but it's the strategic plan of the Traffic and Safety Commission or the Water Commission or whoever
True.
it might be, which is why we expanded it to add the independent commission part of it, but I understand, kind of the point that you're making outside of all of this.
the more aligned and this is not about the. The more aligned we can be about, I used to talk about, what's the castle? Like, what are we aiming at? And if the castle looks like this, well, everybody should be kind of marching towards it. We might go a bit like that or a bit like that, but we shouldn't be going this way, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
No matter what point it is, but anyway, sorry.
Thank you. No, it's good to talk about that stuff before you make your big decisions. On your
Twenty
words.
twenty strategic plan, so it's probably about time to dust it off, too.
I know. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I think they should use Rory's for that thing too. I think it'd be good for them to.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into that, how they do it and all that, but I
They don't use those, but it wouldn't be a bad system for them to look into. Might help them. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
check.
On my motion, aye.
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 Jill, Sue, thank you. We won't meet for 2 weeks then, but if we can.